My daughter was 11 days old. I want you to hold that number for a moment before anything else. 11 days. Not weeks. Not months. 11 days. She had been breathing air for 11 days, and she had not yet learned that the world outside the womb could be organized against you before you were old enough to understand what organization meant. Her name is Eden. My name is Soleil. I am 29 years old. On December 31st at 8:47 p.m., my mother-in-law Harriet stood in the doorway of the bedroom I had been recovering in since the hospital discharge, and she said that I needed to be out of her house by 10 o'clock. She said it with the specific composed authority of a woman who had been building toward this moment for several weeks and who had finally found the occasion she needed. The occasion was a conversation I had overheard between my husband Terrence and her 2 hours earlier, a conversation about money, about the specific financial contributions I had been making to the household, and about what Harriet had decided those contributions meant about my position in the family. She had decided they meant nothing. I looked at Harriet. I looked at Eden, who was in the portable bassinet beside the bed, asleep with the specific complete surrender of an 11-day-old who has not yet learned that sleep requires vigilance. I looked at my overnight bag. I thought about the checks. Not the situation, the checks. 47 of them across 3 years. Written from my account. Handed to Harriet or to Terrence's sister or to the household account that I had been funding alongside my husband's income, because this was what I had been asked to do, and because I had done it without question. The way you do things in a family that you believe is yours. 47 checks. The total was something I had calculated once and then not allowed myself to calculate again, because the number was the kind that produces a specific quality of realization that requires sitting down. I picked up Eden. I picked up the bag. I walked out. Not because I had nowhere to go, I had somewhere to go by the time I reached the car. I had my grandmother. Her name was Ida. She was 78 years old and had been, for the entirety of my 29 years, the specific gravitational constant of my family, the person around whom everything else organized itself. The woman who had seen every difficult thing and who responded to difficult things with the particular unhurried competence of someone who had been preparing for difficulty since before I was born. She answered the phone on the second ring. It was 9:14 p.m. on New Year's Eve. I was in the car in the driveway of Harriet's house with Eden in the car seat and my overnight bag in the trunk, and the December cold pressing against the windows with the specific insistence of a season that does not negotiate. "Grandma," I said. "Where are you?" she said. She had read everything from the one word. I told her. "Come," she said. I drove 40 minutes through a New Year's Eve city, the specific urban texture of a night that is simultaneously festive for some people and completely indifferent to everyone else's emergencies. The roads had the particular quality of a night when ordinary traffic patterns have been replaced by the specific movement of people going toward something celebratory, and I was driving toward the only woman in my life who would have the lights on and the door open, and the specific quality of presence that I needed on December 31st with an 11-day-old in the car seat. My grandmother's house smelled of the things it had always smelled of, the particular warm combination of her specific cleaning products and the cooking she had done earlier, and the 60 years of a life fully lived in a space that had absorbed every version of her. She took Eden from me at the door. She did not say anything immediately. She held Eden with the practiced confidence of a woman who had held many babies across 7 decades, and who held this one with a specific additional quality. The quality of a great-grandmother holding a child who has just been introduced to difficulty at 11 days old and who is going to need someone to hold her like this again and again in the years ahead. "Sit," she said. I sat. She made tea. She sat across from me. "Tell me everything," she said. I told her. The telling took 40 minutes and 2 cups of tea. My grandmother listened with the complete attention she had always given to things that required it, not with the anxious forward-leaning of someone who wants to offer solutions before the problem has been fully described, but with the particular settled receptiveness of someone who understands that the most important thing they can offer is the complete receipt of what is being given. When I finished, she said, "The checks." "Yes," I said. "Tell me about the checks." I had been keeping records. Not from strategy, from the specific professional habit of a woman who was a bookkeeper by trade and who had applied to her personal financial life the same systematic attention she applied to her clients' books. I had a record of every payment I had made to or on behalf of the Harrington family since month 4 of my marriage. The payments had begun innocuously. A contribution to the household utilities in month 4 because Terrence's hours had been reduced and the gap needed filling. A gift for Harriet's birthday that year, not large, but documented. A payment toward the insurance on Terrence's sister's car when the sister's job ended in month 7. A contribution to the family gathering in November of the first year. By year 2, the contributions had become regularized without ever being formalized. The specific pattern of something that starts as generous and becomes expected and becomes structural without anyone having a specific conversation about the structure. By year 3, I was funding approximately 40% of the household's discretionary expenses. The checks totaled, and I had calculated this number once and then put the ledger in a drawer and not opened the drawer again, $22,430. My grandmother looked at the number when I said it. She did not react immediately. She looked at it the way she looked at all significant information, with the specific considered attention of someone who is understanding the full dimensions before she speaks. You kept records, she said. I always keep records, I said. Good, she said. What do I do with them? I said. She set down her tea. First, she said, you sleep. You are 29 years old, and you have an 11-day-old baby, and you were thrown out of a house on New Year's Eve. You sleep. And tomorrow? I said. Tomorrow, she said, we talk about what the records are for. Eden woke at 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. and 7 a.m. Each waking was the particular complete waking of an 11-day-old who has not yet learned to distinguish between the appropriate and inappropriate hours for needing things. The specific democratic hunger of a newborn who requires what she requires regardless of the night's events or her mother's capacity. I fed her each time. In my grandmother's spare bedroom. In the particular dark and quiet of a house that has been sleeping for decades and that receives a nursing mother and a newborn with the specific uncomplaining solidity of a space that has held more difficult things than this and has held them correctly. By 7 a.m. I had not slept in any meaningful way. By 7:15 my grandmother was in the kitchen. The sounds of her kitchen, the specific sequence of her morning, the kettle, the particular way she opened the cabinet that had a slight resistance she had never bothered to fix because she had been opening it the same way for 20 years and the resistance had become part of the texture of her morning, came through the door with the specific warmth of the ordinary continuing regardless. I put Eden in the portable bassinet. I went to the kitchen. My grandmother had made breakfast. Not asked, made. The specific action of a woman who understood that the most useful thing she could do at 7:15 on New Year's morning for her granddaughter who had been thrown out the previous night was to have eggs and toast and juice on the table before the granddaughter had finished deciding she needed them. I sat. I ate. Eden slept. Outside the kitchen window the January 1st morning was the specific gray of a new year that had not yet decided what it was going to be, flat light, cold sky. The particular clean emptiness of a morning that follows a night of celebration and finds everyone on the other side of it. The records, my grandmother said. Yes, I said. You said you kept copies of the checks, she said. Copies and the originals of the bank statements showing the withdrawals, I said. I have a folder. Where is the folder, she said. In a file box, I said. In my car. I put it there 6 weeks ago. She looked at me. 6 weeks ago, she said. Yes, I said. She understood. 6 weeks before New Year's Eve I had known something was coming. Not specifically, I had not known the date or the occasion or the specific words Harriet would use in the doorway. But I had known, in the particular way that women who keep records and pay close attention to behavioral patterns know things before the things have fully declared themselves, that the architecture of my household was shifting in a direction that was going to require me to be prepared. Terrence had changed in the preceding months. Not dramatically, in the specific incremental way that marriages change when something is building beneath the surface and the person in whom it is building has not yet decided to surface it. The quality of his presence. The phone calls that ended when I entered the room. The specific emotional distance of a man who is managing something in parallel with the life he is visibly living. I had noticed. I had said nothing. I had opened the file box. I had organized the records. I had made copies of everything and stored the copies with my grandmother's neighbor's daughter, a woman named Patricia who was 36 and had the specific trustworthy quality of someone who knew how to hold information without discussing it. I had also called a family law attorney. Not from panic, from the particular professional reflex of a bookkeeper who understands that the most important financial decisions are made in preparation rather than in response. The attorney's name was Denise Foreman. She was 49 years old, African American, and had been practicing family and financial law for 21 years. I had one consultation call with Denise 6 weeks before New Year's Eve. I had described the financial contributions, the regularized payments, the lack of formal agreement, the total. Denise had been quiet for a moment. Then she had said, "You kept records?" "I'm a bookkeeper," I said. "Then you understand," she said, "that what you have described is a financial contribution pattern that, without formal documentation of intent, can be characterized legally in more than one way. And that characterization matters. What do I need to do?" I said. She told me. I did it. In the 6 weeks before New Year's Eve, I had become, without anyone knowing, completely prepared for New Year's Eve. I returned to the Harrington house at 10 a.m. on New Year's Day. Terrence had called twice the previous night and once that morning. I had not answered. What I had done instead was nurse Eden and sleep in 2-hour intervals and eat my grandmother's breakfast and review, in the particular focused way of someone who has been preparing for a moment and is now inside it, the folder of records. I drove to the house with Eden in the car seat and the folder on the passenger seat and my grandmother in the back seat because she had said she was coming and I had not argued. Harriet answered the door. She looked at my grandmother first. My grandmother was 78 years old and had the specific quality of a woman whose presence in a difficult room communicates, without words, that the room has just become more serious than it was. Harriet stepped back. We went inside. Terrence was in the living room. I sat. My grandmother held Eden. I opened the folder. "I came back," I said, "to do 2 things. The first is to tell you what I have. The second is to make a decision about what to do with it." I placed the folder on the coffee table. 47 checks across 36 months, I said. $22,430. Every check documented with the date, the amount, the purpose, and the corresponding bank statement entry. Harriet looked at Terrence. Terrence looked at the folder. "I am also going to tell you," I said, "that I have spoken with an attorney. And that the attorney has explained to me that financial contributions of this pattern and scale, made without formal agreement, can constitute a recoverable financial claim in certain circumstances." The room was very quiet. I reached into the folder. I took out the copies. I placed the originals in the shredder I had brought in from the car, my grandmother's small desk shredder, carried in under my arm. "I am not going to pursue the claim," I said. "I am shredding the originals. Because I want you to understand that I am choosing to leave. I am not being pushed out. I am walking away from what I am owed, because the people I chose to be family with have shown me what they consider family to mean." I fed the checks into the shredder. Each one. All 47. The machine was loud in the quiet room. Terrence followed me to the car. I had expected this. My grandmother was still inside. I had asked her to stay with Eden while I went to the car because I had known he would follow and because the conversation that was coming required me to be standing and not holding my daughter. He came out the front door and walked down the path and stopped at a distance that communicated something, not the distance of a man who has decided, but the distance of a man who has not yet decided and who is standing in the gap between deciding and not deciding with the particular unhappy quality of someone who knows both options will cost him. "Soleil," he said. "Terrence," I said. "What you did in there," he said, "was accurate," I said. "You didn't need to." "Terrence," I said. "Your mother threw me out on New Year's Eve with our 11-day-old daughter. I came back to do something that required being done in the room where she did it. That is what I needed to do." He looked at the ground. "I should have." "Yes," I said. "You should have. Many times. You should have stood between what your mother was doing and what I was experiencing. You didn't." "I know," he said. "I'm not here to have a conversation about what you should have done," I said. "I am here to tell you that Eden and I are going to be all right. I have family. I have a home to go to. I have records of everything I contributed to yours, and I have an attorney who knows what the records mean. Soleil. The attorney's name is Denise Foreman, I said. Have your attorney contact her. He looked at me with the specific expression of a man who has arrived at the full weight of a situation, and who is finding the weight considerably heavier than he had anticipated. What do you want? He said. I said, what I always wanted. A husband who showed up. A family that treated me like I belonged. I'm not going to get those things from you and your mother. So what I want now is fair, and what is fair will be determined by Denise. I went back inside. I picked up my daughter. I walked to the car. My grandmother was already outside waiting. We drove away from the Harrington house in the specific clear morning of New Year's Day. Denise Foreman met me on January 3rd. She was 49 years old and had the particular precise warmth of a family law attorney who had spent 21 years doing a job that required her to care deeply about people's lives while also maintaining the professional detachment necessary to serve their legal interests rather than their emotional ones. Her office was on the 7th floor of a building downtown with the specific functional dignity of a space that was not trying to impress anyone, but that communicated, through its organization and its cleanness, that serious work happened there. I brought the folder. I brought Eden, who slept in the carrier against my chest with the specific complete unconsciousness of a newborn who has decided that her mother's heartbeat is the most reliable thing in her world. Denise looked at the folder. She reviewed the records with the focused attention of 21 years of financial documentation. These are excellent records, she said. I'm a bookkeeper, I said. I remember, she said. She set the folder down. I want to discuss two things with you, she said. The first is the financial claim. The second is the custody framework we should establish immediately. Eden's father, I said. Yes, she said. Regardless of what happens between you and your husband, we want to ensure that the custody arrangement protects Eden's interests and is clear from the beginning. New Year's Eve cannot be the model for how decisions are made about her. No, I said. The financial claim, she said. The records you have support a claim for recovery of a portion of the contributions made without formal agreement. The legal characterization is complex and the outcome is not guaranteed. But the records give you a position. I don't want a war, I said. You don't need a war, she said. You need a fair settlement. Those are different things. She laid out the path. Not dramatically, in the specific clear language of someone who understands that people in crisis need information organized simply. By the end of the meeting, I understood my position. It was stronger than I had known. Denise walked me to the elevator. She looked at Eden in the carrier. She's going to be all right, she said. Yes, I said. So are you, she said. I know, I said. I meant it. The months after New Year's Eve were the months that built the foundation. Not the divorce. That came later and was handled by Denise with the particular competence of someone who had done this many times and who ensured that what was fair was documented and filed and final. The months I mean are the specific daily months of a woman and her newborn building a life from what they have. I moved in with my grandmother for 6 weeks. 6 weeks in her spare bedroom with the particular sounds of her house, the kettle, the resistant cabinet, the specific warmth of a woman who has been in the world for 78 years and who understands that the most useful thing she can do for a daughter of her blood is create the conditions under which that daughter can think clearly. In those 6 weeks, I thought clearly. I assessed my finances, the savings I had maintained outside the contributions to the Harrington household, the skills I had built across 4 years of bookkeeping, the professional network I had been quietly developing. I was 29 years old and I was starting over, and the starting over was not from nothing because I had never, despite the $22,000, given away my professional foundation. I found an apartment in month 2. 2 bedrooms, one for me and one for Eden, who was learning in the specific daily increments of a newborn becoming a person that the world outside her mother's body was interesting and worthy of investigation. I took on 3 new bookkeeping clients in month 3, the specific professional expansion of someone who has cleared a space in her life that had previously been occupied by something else. Denise settled the financial matter in month 4. Not the full $22,000. Nothing is ever the full amount. A portion. A fair portion. Enough to provide the specific material cushion that makes the next chapter of a life viable rather than precarious. I put half of the settlement in Eden's education fund. The other half I put toward the certification program I had been postponing for 2 years, a credential that would expand my bookkeeping practice into full accounting services. I enrolled in January. I completed it in August. In September, I had my own clients and my own rate and my own name on my own business. Here is what I kept from a New Year's Eve and 47 checks and a shredder in the Harrington living room and everything that followed. I kept the records. Not the originals. I shredded those in a room where they needed to be shredded because the shredding was the statement that the room required. I kept the copies, which served their legal purpose and which now live in a file box in my apartment labeled with the year and the lesson. The lesson is, document everything. Not from suspicion and not from the anticipation of betrayal, but from the professional discipline of someone who understands that the accurate record of what happened is the most durable truth available. I am a bookkeeper. I keep books. I applied this to my own life, and the application saved me in January, and in Denise's office, and in the settlement, and in every conversation that followed where someone said the number and I could confirm it. I kept my grandmother's 6 weeks. The kettle. The resistant cabinet. The specific warmth of a woman who held my 11-day-old daughter on New Year's Eve with the practiced confidence of someone who has held enough babies to know that this one was going to be all right. She turns 79 in March. I am going to be there. Eden is going to be there. My grandmother is going to hold Eden the way she held her on December 31st, and Eden is going to receive it the way all children receive the holding of people who have been in the world long enough to know what holding is for. I kept Denise's distinction. You don't need a war. You need a fair settlement. Those are different things. I apply this to every conflict I encounter now. War is expensive and imprecise. Fair is specific and achievable. I want the specific achievable thing. I am a bookkeeper. I work in specifics. I kept the shredding. Not as triumph, as clarification. I chose to leave. I was not pushed. I shredded the originals because I wanted the people in that room to understand the difference. The copies did the legal work. The shredding did the other work. Both were necessary. I am 29 years old. My daughter is 1 year old now. She walks with the particular determined quality of someone who has somewhere to be and is getting there. She has my grandmother's eyes. She has her own laugh. Eden is all right. So am I. We both knew we would be. If this story reached something in you, if you have ever been pushed out of a place and discovered that the leaving was actually a beginning, I want to hear about it in the comments. What did you build on the other side of the door that closed? Stories like this one stay alive because people carry them forward. Share this with someone who needs it today. And if you would like more stories told honestly, the way things worth keeping deserve to be told, subscribe. We will be here. The end.